For generations, we've been taught that if you want to move a relationship forward, you have to follow a specific set of steps. Meet someone, fall in love, and eventually move in together. Because moving in is a signal that the relationship is serious. But
pause. I just want to say, to compliment the video I did over my commentary channel about not moving in with your boyfriend, shout out to all the young people that have been like, Brittany, I almost just moved in with my 40-year-old boyfriend, but you're right. I was doing it because I was desperate. I love you. Thank you for saving yourself, because that's what you just did right there. But I will say this, all my video was meant to say is that you don't have to. I'm saying you can if you would like, but you don't have to. You can live with a married partner. You don't have to. You can move in with a person you're not married to. It's up to you. But really, you get to decide through negotiation what works for you. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. I know the title is, you should not move in with your boyfriend. It's called a YouTube title. Everybody chill. Okay, it's what got you to click, isn't it? Now, I wish you would sit and digest the information. Okay, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do monogamy. You don't have to do polyamory. You don't have to do marriage at all. You can do whatever you want. Just make sure it's for the right reasons.
a growing number of couples are opting out of that last step. This is Mike, and this is Susan. They've been together for 23 years, but they've never lived together, and they don't plan to. The arrangement has a name, Living Apart Together, or LAT, and it's more common than you might think. Between 2000 and 2019, the number of married couples living separately rose by more than 25%.
It is an increasingly popular lifestyle choice for people past a certain age, generally in their 60s, who are...
Yeah, I think it's mostly for older couples. I hear this a lot from older couples. I will say, I used to love an author named Robert B. Parker. I used to read all of his books. He's dead now. He's very old. And one of the things I loved about his relationship with his wife, and the main character in his book, is they lived apart from their partners. Him and his wife were married for many, many years, decades, had 2 grown sons, and they were on the verge of like a divorce, right? And they were like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And they just realized they needed a duplex. He lived on one side, she lived on the other, and they continued to live until the day they died. I think, there's sort of like what you mean to say when you say you live apart. I do think some people, it's a huge red flag when they say they don't want to live with their partner. And for some people, it's a green flag, and it's dependent on the health of the relationship. So when I think about my partnership, like, I was just thinking about it this morning. I think ideally we would live in a place that felt like 2 separate places, but weren't. Or maybe I could go to the office sometimes, because like I love working from home. But I will say your workflow is impacted. Like, I do think I'd get more work done if I didn't live with somebody, or if I didn't have other responsibilities, if I wasn't thinking about feeding the cat or doing the dishes. I know that sounds crazy because people always want to work from home so they can do the dishes, but it actually fucks up my flow thinking about any household stuff while I'm working, which is why I can see the benefit of going to the office, because you don't have to worry about your household chores when you're at the office. You're just working. So there's pros and cons to both of it. And then sometimes I like the benefits of being able to leave my office and say hi to my partner. Some days I love that. I need that. Some days I really need a break. And I love the convenience of being like, hey, can you talk to me for 30 minutes so I can decompress from work and go back to it? So it's really... there's some pros and cons to each of it, right? Chat says, which book? All of them. Robert B. Parker wrote like 50 books, and it was the Spencer series, and I read all of them. He also wrote a Jesse something series that got turned into a TV show with Tom Selleck. So I read all of his books. But Potshot was one of my favorites.
Retired.
So if sharing a home is the ultimate sign of loving commitment, why are some couples deciding not to do it at all? And does living together actually improve relationships, or does it turn lovers into roommates?
Hey there.
Also, I just want to say, I kind of don't really understand what anyone means when they say roommate anymore, because I also think I saw this TikTok that was going viral that was like, I don't think men would be in relationships with us if they couldn't have sex with us. Again, you guys are being so bioessentialist about everything you're saying, and it's kind of actually annoying me. Plenty of men are asexual. Plenty of men do not care about sex. You are being so weird. If you mean certain men raised in a certain culture believe that without sex, you're nothing, like marriage doesn't require sex. A perfectly happy marriage does not require sex. Okay? Now, with that said, these women on TikTok that I saw as a response to men being, quote, horny, was to say, I withhold sex until I'm comfortable. Also weird. Also weird to say, I want to marry you and I'm never going to have sex with you. I'm always going to have sex with you. How about you just like relax? Take it out a day at a time, talk about it, talk about who you are as a person. If you know for a fact you're the person who never wants to have sex because it genuinely isn't a biological need for you / not interest to you, great. But if you're a person who's withholding sex as a way to counter horny men, you're so weird. You're so traumatized. That's what I mean. Like with peace and love, You need to do things because you're joyful and not because you are fighting some system. Love is not about systems. Love is about connection between you and a consciousness. So again, like my marriage isn't like the patriarchy doesn't exist in my marriage because we've both deconstructed it, right? Like the patriarchy has no business in my marriage. But it feels like a lot of these marriages, they're just fighting the patriarchy. And I'm just like not interested. If you think your person hasn't deconstructed patriarchy, don't marry them. They're not your person. But if you marry them, then I still think that means you need time. You need to still deconstruct the patriarchy, which is probably why I don't always love Chelsea Fagan's perspective on marriages, because it does sound like she's still fighting the patriarchy somehow. And I don't know how she got married to somebody or to herself who did not deconstruct it yet, because no wonder you have anxiety, right? It's not to say people who've deconstructed patriarchy still can't end up in divorce. I just don't see a problem with divorce, right? I don't know. It's just weird.
Hey, how you been?
Good.
This is probably when I know I wore this dress when we were first dating, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Susan and I met because we worked at the same school.
And he was a school
Cute.
psychologist there. I was a teacher.
We were pretty good friends for a long time, and then found out we got divorced at the same time, so we were like, hey, maybe we should hang out together.
He asked me out to a street festival,
I remember exactly what she looked like. I remember the sweater she was wearing.
and I finally confessed. I said, I have always thought you were handsome.
It just seemed right from the start.
In those early days, Mike and Susan decided not to move in together for one main reason. Mike had 2 teenagers at home.
She loves my kids and has always been wonderful with them, but she did not want to be a stepmother.
I just wanted them to not feel pressured.
Right from the start, it worked out for us to not live together.
And by the time the kids were getting ready to move out for college,
We had been together for 5 or 6 years already.
they realized they didn't need to change anything. And over time, the arrangement
This is a very important arrangement. I think this is so unique, and it takes a really confident and secure person to have this arrangement. But I don't think just because you marry someone with kids, you have to be a step parent, right? This kind of happened with Love is Blind this last season with Jordan, where Jordan wasn't sure he wanted to be a step parent, but also you don't have to be, like the dad's still in the picture. Yes, it's nice when men step up or women step up and become step parents, like that's beautiful, but it's not a requirement of all people with kids, you know? So I think it's really important to know what kind of a marriage you're setting yourself up for. But because we follow this script of a nuclear family and a patriarchal system, I think the automatic assumption is that if you were to remarry and there are minor children, that those children would then call you mom or dad or something. But I think this is something you should absolutely deconstruct, because I don't think it's necessary. And I like this arrangement. I think this is a good arrangement if it works for them and it's genuinely good for them. Then I like it, right? Then it's great and it's healthy. Now, chat says, what happens if you love each other, but you have lower sex needs? How do you reconcile? I think there's a lot to be unpacked in that one sentence, but like with anything else in life, relationships should be custom. You know, we talk about decking out our cars and customizing our desktops and customizing our cell phones, but we never think about customizing our marriages. And I just think like we need to customize our romantic relationships, but make sure you're doing it for the right reason. Any reason that's wrong will make any structure you create wrong, right? But I will just say that I do think like somebody in chat said some people think sex is gross, and that's interesting. My partner and I just started watching Mr. In Between, which is like a Australian show about a serial or like a hitman. And his 9-year-old daughter or whatever catches him having sex with his girlfriend. And he has to have the birds and bees conversation with him. He's divorced from her mother, And the little girl's like, ew, that's kind of gross. And then they're kind of like, yeah, it is kind of gross. I'm like, yeah, sex is kind of gross. Like, it's not gross, to be clear, but it is kind of gross. You know, like if you're not horny, sex is kind of gross. You know, just think about like the things we're willing to do when we're horny. And then think about when you're not horny doing those things and you're like, ugh! Like just think about swallowing. Okay, think about swallowing when you're not horny. You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't be at a buffet and order a side of, you know what I'm saying, girl? But when you're horny, all of a sudden that shit becomes doable. You know what I mean? So I just think sex is kind of gross, but also it's kind of hot. It's kind of hot. You know what I mean? So like you kind of have to think about it from all those perspectives, kind of see like, but again, you know, deconstruct it, make sure you're not having a disgust response because of sexual trauma or something or religious trauma, right? And I also think like, you know, this is dependent on people really knowing themselves. Like, you know, I identify as more allosexual. My partner's on the demi kind of EC spectrum, but like regardless, we get along really well and it works out for us. But we're very communicative and we kind of have a rule of let's have sex whenever we want, right? Instead of let's have sex every other day, like, you know, some people think is healthy, or 4 times a week or 7 times a day. It's just like, let's just have sex when we want. And then we do. And I think that's kind of the point, right? I think people put so much pressure on themselves to perform penetrative sex that they forget about intimacy in general. Like, this is about intimacy. So funny enough, looking at this couple, what I see is like a level of intimacy here. Ironically enough, them not living together, right? Them respecting each other's models and how they were before. There's something like really intimate about this setting, even though they live apart. So again, if you live away from your partner, if you don't share money with your partner because you're afraid they'll betray you one day, that is not intimacy. Intimacy is trusting your partner and you trusting them so significantly that you live apart or have separate bank accounts. It's not done out of fear, it's done out of love and respect. And that's the point. If you're doing it out of love and respect, there's beautiful things to come from this. If you're doing it out of fear, resentment, sexism, something else, well, obviously it's not going to be healthy, right?
Arrangement just worked.
Well, you know, if it's not broken, why fix it?
It might sound a little unorthodox, but Mike and Susan's arrangement isn't that unusual anymore, especially later in life.
Sarah Paulson and Holland Taylor are doing it. So are Cheryl Lee Ralph and her husband, Pennsylvania State Senator Vincent Hughes.
When I go to see him, love to see him. When it's time to leave, bye-bye, see you soon.
But that doesn't mean...
Funny enough, the way certain people talk about their relationships, though, I don't love. I don't love the way she talks about her relationship. I've seen those interviews where she's talked about it. It's not my favorite all of the time, but again, everyone has a unique reason for why. It's not okay, I'll see you soon, see you next time. No, I want to see you forever. Like, I personally do not want to live away from my partner. So if we ever had separate houses, they would have to be next door to each other, and we'd have to mostly sleep in similar areas and or at least see each other, you know, for a significant part of the day. I think there's like, it's different for everybody. It truly is, and I accept this, but that's not my favorite. You know what I mean? So like my partner and I don't always sleep in the same bed as an example. But the point is that we can if we want to. I wouldn't want to be in a position where I would want to sleep in bed with my partner and I'd need to get in the car to go do it. But if I was like, hey, like next door, because truly the point of living in separate places in my head would just simply to be like to have an office. That's it. Like I don't want a separate place. I want a separate office. That's all I want. I wanted like a house in the backyard where I go do my art. You know, I want like a sunroom or something. I don't want an actual place away from you. I just want a space that's mine. My dad has his office. My mom has her room. Like, I just want a space in the house that's mine that feels like I'm alone because I'm working or something, right? So I think that's the difference too, is like, do you know, how far away are you from each other? How inconvenient is it to see each other? Like 45 minutes away from one another is way too long. That's crazy. 5 minutes down the street, maybe a couple blocks away. But even then, I really would want it within walking distance, personally.
Everyone accepts it.
We got a lot of resistance and questions from people we
getting like a duplex next door to each other or 2 tiny homes or something.
knew, especially in Texas. People don't understand.
For years, Mike and Susan didn't have a name for what they were doing.
And yeah, like, what about when you, you know, Chet says that would get old. It would get old. Like, it would get so annoying. And then what about like just when you get older and you need care? What about Alzheimer's and cancer and all that stuff? I guess we could change it at that point. So maybe they're keeping their homes for financial reasons. Maybe they could be doing other things. Again, make it custom. It really doesn't matter what other people think. What matters is that it works for you.
Until Mike found something surprising, a Facebook group with thousands of couples just like them.
So I sent that right away to Susan and said, hey, look at this. There's an actual name for what we're doing. It's called A-partnering.
Modern love has changed dramatically over the last century. In the 1960s, the average American got married in their early 20s. Today, it's closer to 30. And people are getting divorced later too. The divorce rate for adults over 50 has doubled since the 1990s, a trend known as Great Divorce.
And so you have a lot more older single people, but they might not want to live with a romantic partner because a lot of them feel like, well, been there, done that.
And by the time they're in their 50s and 60s, most people have built lives that already work for them.
Particularly if you're older and you're kind of set in your ways.
They have their healthcare providers close by, maybe their children, their grandchildren.
But there's another reason this trend is growing. For most of modern history, marriage wasn't about love. It was an economic arrangement. Women in the US couldn't even open a bank account or get credit without a husband husband until the 1970s. Today, women don't need to depend on a partner for financial reasons, and many don't want to take on the role that used to come with that either.
I don't have to take on all the domestic chores. If I don't feel like cooking, I don't.
I'm probably not quite as clean as Susan would prefer. I'll tend to put stuff off.
This part is so funny to me too. Like, oh, domestic chores. I like my space the way I like it. That can be really, really difficult, like truly so difficult. And also I will say that I have a question about like their finances, their retirement. Are they also financially living in a different, like, do they share money? Because I'm a very like sharing is caring kind of girly, which maybe is my communist socialist brain. I'm not sure. But, I'm not worried about sharing money with my partner. I think that just makes so much more sense. And I get stressed when people are like, oh, my partner and I have different finances and they can't afford to go on vacation with me. I'm like, huh? What do you mean? Like, what do you mean they can't afford to go on vacation with you? Are you guys going out or not? Like, are you going on vacation or not? So I think I have questions about that kind of stuff. But I think with these couples, it tends to be separate. And then at that point, the question is what is the relationship then? I don't know. Because sometimes people say, like, oh, I do this with my friends. I buy a house with a friend. I go on vacation with my friends. We share finances. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to be very independent from my friends. Because my friends and I have different values, different ways we want to spend money. I have some friends that are like into traveling. I have other friends that are like in the moment kind of people, or they save for a long time. When I think about a partner, I'm thinking about them as more than a friend, right? Like in the same way, I don't want to do life with my siblings either. Like I am very independent in that sense, but there's something about partnership that to me feels very communal. It feels very much like a village. Like this is my actual village. Realistically, like my friends are my vacation village or my friend village, but it's a different village. They're still very important. We still do a lot of things for one another. We've still borrowed money and helped each other at hospitals, but it feels very different. Like I really tell my partner everything every day. Like I talk to some of my friends every day, like on text messages, but like inner thoughts and fears and vulnerabilities, like fears that I do think are private from my friends, vulnerabilities that are private from my friends. I love my friends and family, but they don't know everything about me, and that's not because of who they are. That's because of who I am. I want everybody to know every little intimate thought I have, right? But I would like to share it with somebody, and that feels like my partner would be a good person to share that with. Now, some people think that's not true. Some people think like your partner does not need to know every thought, or your partner does not need to know every vulnerability, or you do not need to share insecurities with your partner. But I actually that is who I'd prefer to share it with. That's just my preference. Some people prefer their besties. Kind of something to think about.
I'm like, I'll get around to it sooner or later. That kind of thing would drive her nuts.
And with fewer shared chores and more personal space, each person gets to keep something that a lot of relationships chip away at: their independence.
We had a bunch of questions that we asked people, like, if you could bring the best of being single into the best of being romantically partnered, what would it be? And it was freedom.
This is my living room, my main living space, and then my record collection, which I've got.
Yeah, freedom is an interesting word. Freedom over independence. I feel very free in my marriage. I feel very liberated in this relationship. I mean, we are two grown adults, so obviously there's a learning curve of kind of like learning how the other one does things and learning what we prioritize. And sure, there's been some conversations about like, this is how we want the house to look or be, or the standard of expectation. Sure, we've had those conversations. But maybe because we are young enough, we are in our 30s, maybe for us, we are young enough for that to be like fun and exciting. Like, more like, oh, we get to do this together rather than we have it established apart. Does that make sense? Because I don't think as an adult I've ever truly had it like a place. So I always feel like I'm still figuring it out. Like I'm still kind of figuring out what I want my house to even look like, to be honest. Like I haven't decided, girl. I like everything. That's the problem. It's like body shape. I like all the shapes. Like sometimes I wish I was bigger. Sometimes I wish I was smaller. Sometimes I wish I had, crazy muscles. And sometimes I wish I was like toothpick. And sometimes I wish I was, it's like houses. That's how I feel about houses. So it's like, sometimes I want a really minimalist house. And sometimes I want no space on the walls, naked. Right. So because I'm still figuring it out, I think it means that it's more it's easier for me to build a life with somebody rather than their houses are beautiful, they're established, they're decorated. Like he already, everything is already set. So it's probably a lot harder to bring that together. So I do think age and where you are in your life can play a much bigger role in this. Yeah.
All over the house. So I've got records in every room. I listen to music pretty much almost nonstop all day. I collect turntables too. I've got 7 different turntables, I think.
Interesting. Like I listen to music all day. He says like that can be irritating to some people. I could see that. Like your music is going, we get those earplugs. Like if one person has a sound on that the other person doesn't want to hear, we slap in the earplugs. Boop. Okay, we slap in the headphones, whatever. We listen to our own sounds because yeah, like there will be days when I want to blast music and maybe my partner doesn't want to listen to it. Thank goodness Croatia also has a lot of doors. Croatia has so many doors, like doors for the hallway, doors for the kitchen. So it's easy for us to close a bunch of the doors and isolate in parts of the house. But yeah, I think that's pretty funny. I also grew up in a household that always played music and always had sounds and someone who was always playing something. And so we didn't worry about it too much. But Chad says, my coworker has a house and made his girlfriend move out and get an apartment because I quote, it gets annoying seeing someone's face every day. Okay. That's okay. That hurt my feelings and I'm not even her. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. My favorite sound in the whole world is Indiana's little pause as I know she's like, when I know she's coming around the corner, or the sound of my partner's footsteps. I love seeing my partner. I love seeing my partner. But to be fair, I also love seeing my siblings. I also love seeing my family and friends. Like when I lived with my brothers, we were all roommating with each other during lockdown. It was so much fun. But there was a point where my little brother had to he was like, dude, you have me sneaking out of my bedroom because I know every time I open my door, you're going to come talk to me. And I was like, look, is it my fault that I want to spend so much time with you? Is it my fault that we all live at home together and it's lockdown? Is it my fault that I want to watch Dragon Ball Z with you? God forbid a sister want to spend time with her brother. And then we had to create boundaries because it was true. Like every time he would open his bedroom door, I was like, are we hanging out? Are we hanging out? You want to play Smash? You want to hang out with me? I was literally like, it was so funny. And then he would try to sneak out. And I was like, I hear you sneaking. I hear you sneaking. Anyways, what can I say? Also on the Snapchat, family Snapchat yesterday, the brothers sent a picture from that time. And it was so cute. We were all together hanging out. And I'm like, oh, the good old days. All of us are in reminiscing eras right now. We're all like, oh, I miss lockdown. I miss being with you. Like, we miss hanging out together. Like, we're definitely in that era this week of just like, and it's true, like we all do miss each other so much. So, it's kind of cute. But yeah, even when you miss somebody, I get it. You want your own space. You want to breathe. But also, I don't know. Like the idea of, I could never ask somebody I love, like, I need you to move out. I'm sick of seeing your face. I couldn't even tell that to my siblings. Like, I would have to really hate them. Like, I'd have to be in a really bad place, genuinely. Like, I'm so sick of you. But like, that wouldn't be about them. That would be about like, we're having a conflict. But like, my partner isn't my sibling, right?
After working so many years, being able to just sit on the couch, put on a record. I like to put on like YouTube travel videos, spin record after record. I can do that all day long.
Autism.
And that to me,
this man might be an autistic king.
It's just, that's pure pleasure for me.
He likes his jazz. He likes to play his jazz loud. I would want to be watching documentaries and have it a little bit more quiet and subdued. This is my sketchbook where I just try a lot of different things. I've found out that I can do some.
I don't know if you guys do this with your partners, but I do. I mean, a common conversation my partner and I have is like, hey, do you want to watch that with me or should we watch it on our own? Because we both watch TV shows alone. We watch a lot of just shows like on our, like, if like, because we're such tech people that, yeah, like it takes a lot of conversation to decide like what we're watching together. Especially since my partner watches shows a lot faster than I do. Like they watch a lot more. Like I need, especially if we're watching anime, like I need to sit down. I need to read subtitles. I watch in Japanese. Like it's a process for me versus like he has more time to do that. Or like we binge while we do things while we watch shows. So, we have to negotiate, like, hey, do you want to watch? So right now we're watching Mr. In Between together, which is nice. That's like our date show, which is, it's about Hitman, but like, that's our date show right now. And we do that, and it's really, really nice. And it's a great experience. We talk about it. It's a lot to talk about, you know? So that's cool. But also we're watching like 2 or 3 shows on our own, and then we tell each other about the show, but we don't watch it together. Or sometimes and where they're different shows. Like, I don't think we've had a situation yet where we both watch the same show separate, but you know, I'll be watching these shows and he's watching these shows, and I'm like, oh, what are you learning from your shows? You know, then we'll try to make it like maybe philosophical or talk about values or whatever. So, you know, I don't know. Everyone is different, but I also think things change when you're also in a relationship and in love. I think a lot of the expectations I had when I was single or in a bad relationship just didn't map on to a healthy one. And my therapist warned me of that. She told me that, like, you know, you're in this situation now, but you know, life looks different when you're healthy. And that's true too. So that's also something to think about, is like, you know, when we think about like, this is the kind of relationship I want. I think what's cool about their relationship is that it defies what you think you should want, and it works for them because it works for them. And I think that's why I like these types of relationships.
Smart. So I've really gotten interested in that, and I'm always doing that several days a week. After a long day of classes, you know, it's just easier to come home and decompress, do your art by yourself, listening to the music, you know, that I'm going to listen to.
Living together means shared space, shared routines, constant access. But desire requires the opposite: separateness, longing, mystery.
I don't like that. I don't like the thought of, I want to miss my partner. I miss my partner when they're with me in the room. Like, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't like the idea of forcing a situation where I miss my partner. I love my partner. I miss them every day. Do you know what I mean? Like, that the idea is like, oh, separation creates longing. I long for them anyways. Like, I don't need the separation. I don't need to, it feels like you're tricking your brain somehow. Maybe because that's how my brain is. Like, I already miss you. I'm hanging out with you and I miss you. You know what I mean? Because I know the time will end, and I just wish this was our life. I wish we didn't have to do adult responsibilities, and I wish we could hang out all day like the Miyazaki Ghibli cope and never have to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do that. But maybe that's because that's how my brain is. You know what I mean? I don't need to, I miss you now, you know? So I don't know.
A mystery to you. As mysterious as life itself.
So I do think that living apart makes things more exciting when we meet up.
You know, still after 23 years, when I haven't seen Susan and we're going to get together for a date, just the anticipation of her driving up my street and up my driveway, I can feel little butterflies in my stomach.
Living apart together isn't for everyone. It can be harder financially, and as people age, health and caretaking situations change. But what matters is knowing that it's an option, because we're living in an age when we no longer have to follow a script for what love and partnership should look like.
We are lucky that we are in the position that we are in, that we can pull this off. I just think it's the best of both worlds. We have our togetherness, and we really appreciate that, but we also have our separate lives, and to be able to have both of those and to fit it together is just, I couldn't be happier with the way it's worked out.
Yeah, I think it's depending on where you are in your life, because Chad said, me and my partner say we wish we could be in a void together for just a bit sometimes. Yeah, sometimes it feels like even though I live with my partner, I never get enough time with them. I work so much, like I feel like I never get enough time with them. And so it's hard for me to think about needing more time away from them when I already feel like living together, I just never get enough time. I never get what feels like, I mean, it was getting so bad that not bad, but I had to make like every other Sunday a date day. Like every Sunday I was catching up with friends, which was hard enough because it was just one day a week, but that was so hard. And now it's like every other Sunday I have to have a date day because we're not getting time together. And I know that's why I'm confused. I think when people are like, oh my God, I see you so much. I'm like, I live with my partner and I don't see them enough. Like I don't, because, you know, when we see each other, it's like very quick in the morning. It's like we're drinking coffee or I'm talking about work or like, hey, I'm in work mode. I can't talk to you right now. Because like for the first 3 hours I'm awake, I'm just thinking about work. 3 to 4 hours I'm awake before stream, I'm just thinking about work. And then 3 to 4 hours after work, I'm just thinking about work. So like I don't have a lot of, you know, there's so much to this job that I don't think, like for most of us, we don't clock out. You know what I mean? My siblings who work jobs where, yeah, they're clocked out, but they're not clocked out. You know what I mean? So like I need quality time. Like quality time is very, very important for me as a love language. Like I need intimacy time. So, you know, for me, that's what I need. I need quality time and to me, that is separate from seeing each other throughout the day. You know what I mean? So again, like everyone is different for sure. And I think it's good to highlight these types of relationships because it can work this way. I really think this is like really workable. And the good thing about you is you get to have a custom relationship. So even if that wouldn't work for me, it works for somebody. And as long as it's healthy, then it's good. And that's how I feel. So when we talk about this stuff, sometimes people are like, Brittany, sometimes you sound like you're saying your way is the only way. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if this was me, it would be a cope. I'm not saying it's a cope. I'm saying if it was me, it would be a cope. So you need to know, are you in my category or someone else's? Because there are tons of women who get on these apps and always say, my boyfriend says he wants to have separate finances because he feels like we're both adults and we don't need to share. Okay, is he doing that because he truly respects the boundaries and thinks we're both like in a great like power couple situation and we don't need to share money? Or is he saying that because he's actually figuring out ways to out of this relationship and ways to fuck you over? Like, it just depends on which category you're in. In my bubble, for me, if I was hiding money from my partner, it would mean I was up to something suspicious. There's just no world where I hide money from my partner and I'm not doing something either suspicious or I'm worried about something bad happening. But for other people, it's like, it's not even that you're hiding it. It's just like what you do. Like I've seen lots of TikToks of people saying, my mom taught me to hide money. My aunties taught me to hide money, right? So, again, I don't know why you would be hiding money. And, so again, you have to know, I can't know the inner workings of your relationships. I just don't have access to that information. You are the only person who will know. And you're the only person who can lie to yourself. You are the only person who can lie to yourself. Okay? So as long as you're not lying to yourself and as long as you were honest about the setup, then I think anything can work, right? Anything can make sense for you. And I really think I think, because I've been wondering about this financial kind of trap that people get themselves into. And again, there are situations in which you are completely being deceived and everything looks above board and you've really trusted this person. You've been married 30 years and also you find out they're a serial killer. That might happen to somebody. Okay, it's probably not going to happen to you, but it's going to happen to somebody. Okay. And a regular ass relationship where people are basically regular, usually there are things you can do to prevent things, but it won't bring about a perfect probability, right? I just think the negative or the optimistic or positive changes the way the relationship goes. Optimistic does not mean naive. And cynical does not mean logical. If you are negative, because you're like, I'm just logical. I'm a logic bro. Women age and become undesirable, and therefore we're going to get divorced. I'm just logical. That's not logical. That is still bigoted and sexist. Okay? If you're on the other side of it where you're like, everything is just perfect and I don't need to ask any questions because I just trust him. Okay, well, that's not optimistic. That's naive. So, again, like when we have these conversations, it's about, am I really aware that I've done my due diligence? And do I know how to talk to this person and vet this person and also trust myself to make this decision? And do I still accept that after all of this time, this person can still choose to be a bad person and deceive me? Because maybe they're a good person for 20 years and then they have like something biological happens or they make a decision, they see a video and get down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. And then all of a sudden, they make this radical change. That's why I say I'm pro-divorce. If my partner or I radically change from the people that we are, we're entitled to a divorce. I didn't sign up for this marriage. I signed up for marrying this person. And this person radically changing to someone bigoted or hateful is not what I signed up for. So I'm entitled to a divorce, right? I think that's the other part where, I don't have like a real plan B for getting out of this marriage, but I obviously know how I would do it. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have real plan Bs, meaning I'm not paranoid and always thinking about my plan B. But obviously, girl, I know what I'm going to do. We've thought about it. I've openly talked about it. My siblings all know. Like, I've talked to my siblings about it. Okay, if this happens and I need a divorce, if I need to get back to America, here's the plan. Like, we already know. But it's not active. It isn't something I'm constantly paranoid about. It's not something I'm always thinking about. It's just something that I know logically as an adult how I would. Same way you would know if you got hit by a bus. Same way I mentally prepare for my partner dying on me because I get cancer. You know what I mean? Like, I do my research. I put in the appropriate amount of prepared work that I can. And if something happens, it happens. Right? Chad says, I wonder if some people who don't like divorce don't think people can change that much. I think it's probably just residual religious trauma from the idea that like you failed your marriage or there's a stigma against divorced people. I've been thinking about this with the way we talk about like 2 divorces in 10 years. I do think the reason it's a red flag you got 2 divorces in 10 years is the fact that you were willing to do paperwork twice. It's not actually that you were willing to be in a committed relationship, because a lot of us move in with partners, we date, the stigma isn't the same. But the reason I think the stigma can be so heavy with marriage is, yes, religious trauma, but 2, you did paperwork twice. Girl, getting married was so much paperwork. Am I confused? Did you guys all get married differently? It is a lot of work. There's a lot of government legality to this. So, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why people are so eager to do paperwork twice, but absolutely not. So, and I think I was just talking about this with my partner this morning. Like, I never shared money. I never shared bank accounts. I never shared anything legal with anyone except a lease, which was risky enough. That was a risk. Okay. When I was dating people, and even when my ex-partner was like, let's get married, I was like, no. And he would tell our friends, and our friends would be like, oh, I heard you're getting married. I was like, we are not getting married. And I knew he was trying to marriage trap me subconsciously, though I didn't know it really consciously. I just thought like, you're being so like faux romantic. Like, this isn't romantic to me. Like, pressuring me into marrying you is not romantic. But I knew. Now the question is, why did I know not to marry him and other people don't know not to marry people? I think a big part of it is that I am privileged enough to be incredibly well read, and I am privileged enough to have like this personality type, which is insanely independent. So when somebody comes to me and says like, marry me, I hear a red flag before I hear a green flag. If it is pressured, if it's not organized, if it makes no sense, there's no fucking ring. Like, what are we talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Our marriage is toxic and your thought is marriage? So I know that, but I know that the way I know not to make a baby to save a marriage. A lot of people really think getting married and making a baby saves a marriage. They literally think this. And I know that's not true. And that is like a form of privilege to say, I know it is untrue that marriages or babies save relationships that are failing. So that's the only reason I didn't make that decision of marrying him, is because I knew better. But why did I know better? I had the information other people don't, you know? So I'm also deeply empathetic to the fact that other people don't know. They don't know what they don't know. In the same way I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. But eventually you do know, and then you make a good decision that's informed, right? Chad says, what do you think about prenups? I'm kind of indifferent to prenups. I think in some bubbles, it's very, very common and it makes a lot of sense. I think in other bubbles, it is a red flag. We saw this with Love is Blind to Devontae and Brittany, where Devontae last minute goes, hey, what do you think of a prenup? I made a lot of money and I don't want to lose it. Yeah, if that's a red flag. His prenup was a red flag, right? So, for me in my marriage, a prenup would be a red flag. But I also think, and I also think that a bigger red flag is when my ex wanted to help me with my YouTube channel by wanting 50% of the channel. See, that was a red flag. In some ways, you can twist it and say, oh, he just wanted to secure the fact that he was going to put labor into this channel and wanted to know he'd get a return. Okay, I'll pay you. I'll legally pay you. You're not getting 50% of my channel. Okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, there are ways to have these conversations that don't sound like you're being scummy. And I think like that's the problem, is like, you're being scummy. Something about you is being, something. And I don't know what it is. So anyways, I think a prenup can work, and I think a prenup can be a red flag. It just depends on the situation. Like any situation. In one situation, green flag, like being a single parent. In some situations, it's a red flag. And a lot of situations, it's a green flag. I think there's a green flag way to be a single parent. I don't think it's the typical way. I don't think most people get to be a green flag single parent, but that's because it comes with a level of privilege that most people don't have. But it's everything you do can be red flag, green flag. I have a college degree, green flag or red flag. It just depends. Do you know what I'm saying? Like anything you do. So the job you have to do is this the green flag or the red flag? Did I do it in a healthy way or an unhealthy way? And go from there.